Good morning. We're talking about Shemona Esrei, davening the silent prayer, and you speak in the middle of Shemona Esrei. Can you imagine? Right, Shemona Esrei, and it has to be totally focused on davening to Hashem, but someone, for whatever reason, said something that wasn't part of the davening. Does he have to go back to the beginning? What does he have to do? So let's learn about that. We're in Kuf Daled Vav, 104.6 in the Mishnah Berurah. So says the Shulchan Aruch, Hadam Rinan. Well, first, we're going to mention a law that we learned last time about waiting, that if you wait the time it takes to daven the whole Shemona Esrei and you're quiet and you don't say any words, so let's say that's 8 minutes, you have to go back to the beginning. So how long exactly is that time? So Hadam Rina Imshal Kadei Ligmor Es Kulo, Bakori Misharinan. So that the time that it takes to daven the whole Shemona Esrei depends on who's reading the Shemona Esrei. So some people might daven in 4 minutes, some people might daven in 10 minutes. So it all depends on you. Now, if you're in the middle of the silent Shemona Esrei and you speak, Dino le'inyan chazar kedin hafsakos hamuras b'siman zeh. The law is like the other interruptions that we mentioned in this siman. And the Mishnah Berurah is going to elaborate. Okay, Vav, the first law, bakore, naket kore, mishum dedin zinavim kriyashma, desham gam kein dinahachik, moshakasav le'el, b'siman samechei, siv aleph b'hago. The law in regards to how long you waited to have to go back to repeat Shemona Esrei is the same as Shema. Now, imsach, what if you spoke? V'hu im hisker ma'ora shel shar yom b'tfila. Now, in addition to speaking, the law also applies if you said part of the davening that wasn't appropriate one day. Let's say today is a weekday, it's Thursday, and let's say I added to the davening Ya'aleh V'yavo for Pesach. So it's not Pesach. I shouldn't have said that in the davening. What's the law? So the law of saying something which you're not supposed to say in davening is the same as if you spoke. If you were davening Shemona Esrei, and if your friend walked by and you said, "Oh, hey, how are you?" in the middle of your Shemona Esrei. Kagon shel Shabbos v'yom tov b'chol k'agavna gam kein dina ki'ilu sach v'yavor l'kam b'sof siman kuf ches Mishnah Berurah and Shem. We're going to talk more about this in Siman 108. That's in a few chapters. B'tfila v'imsach b'kriyishma b'choseh ayin la'el. Okay, he says the law is about Shema. If you interrupt, to look in Siman 65. So what's the law? Let's say you're in the middle of the blessing. So you're in V'li Yerushalayim Ircha, you're in the middle of the blessing, and you spoke. And you only spoke for a second. You didn't even speak the time it takes to finish the blessing. You go back to the beginning of the blessing. Let's say you were speaking so much that it took the time to daven the whole Shemona Esrei. So you're having, let's say, you stop to have a conversation for about 5 minutes in the middle of Shemona Esrei. You have to go back to the beginning of davening. According to what we said earlier, this, a little tongue twister, this law is only if you spoke due to circumstances beyond your control. So you were davening, and the king comes by and starts talking to you, so you have to respond to the king. Or you had to yell at somebody who was driving and who was going to hit you, and you had nowhere to go, so you had to scream at him, "Get out of the way, get out of the way." But let's say you spoke not because of a situation beyond your control, because it was an accident, you forgot you're davening Shemona Esrei and you started talking. Or you thought you're allowed to daven during Shemona Esrei. So you're speaking not because of a situation beyond your control, you're speaking because you made a mistake. So if that's the case, you just started praying Shemona Esrei and you're just becoming religious, and you didn't know there's a law that you're not supposed to speak during Shemona Esrei. So you're davening Shemona Esrei and your good friend comes along, so you stop to have a 10-minute conversation. So you didn't know the law. So the rule is that you just have to go back to the beginning of the blessing that you stopped. You don't have to go back to the beginning. So again, if you spoke for 10 minutes, if it was because of an onus, circumstances beyond your control, then you go back to the beginning of Shemona Esrei. If you spoke because it was by accident, you didn't know the law, or you just forgot, then you go back to the beginning of the blessing. If you speak between blessing the blessing, between the two blessings, even though you did something forbidden, there's nothing to do to fix it. So if you're in between a blessing and you started speaking, you just pick up from where you left off. So Oh, okay, one more law. V'imsach b'mezid. What if you purposely spoke? You know that you're not supposed to do it, but you really wanted to say hi to your friend who was walking by, and you know you're in the middle of Shemona Esrei, and you have something important to tell him. So the Mishnah Berurah says, "Tzarich iyun gadol b'din zeh." We need great research to figure out what the law is here. Yesh omrim dechozer take it for l'rosh hatfila. You have to go back to the beginning of the blessing. Afilu b'sichim uetes, even if you spoke for a little bit. The beginning of the beginning of the davening, total beginning of davening. V'yesh omrim delo shna ben shogeg l'mezin. Some say there's no difference whether you stopped speaking because it was an accident or whether it was on purpose. So, just to review, if you were speaking the entire time that it takes to daven the whole Shemona Esrei, so let's say 8 to 10 minutes, if the reason was because it was a circumstance beyond your control, it was the king, or you're yelling at someone to get out of your way, they were going to hit you, then you go back to the beginning of davening. If you spoke by accident, no matter how long it was, you go back to the beginning of the blessing. Now, if you spoke for a short time and it was on purpose, then the Mishnah Berurah is unsure if you have to go back to the beginning of davening or not. And I hope everyone gets out today and enjoys the beautiful day.